Just to be clear on the purpose of my videos, I'm not claiming to know the intricate details of the history of these locations. What I am proposing here on this channel is that the history of how this architecture came to be has been falsified, and that what we're looking at with this architecture is the remnants of a civilization at its peak, and certainly not a civilization that is pulling itself up from its bootstraps and incorporating all these inventions of the Industrial Revolution at breakneck speed. It doesn't make sense when you factor in the build times, the material sourcing, the usage of materials, and of course the precision of the architecture itself. So don't take offense to my questioning the narrative of your local city. It really is more to inspire you to think about how these buildings really came to be, and is there a deception, a historical deception at play here. And without further ado, we will look at Worcester, Massachusetts. The city of Worcester, Mass., one of the older cities in North America, and we are told a large part of the American Revolutionary War, but you can see the population demographics here down through time, and of course most of what we are looking at here coming out of this era here. So in and around 100,000 people living there at the time. Let's take a look at the architecture. But before we do, a little bit of geography for you. Here's the location. On this channel we have covered Boston, Springfield, Holyoke, and going out a little further, Providence, Hartford, Albany. And right away we see the very weathered streets and the streetcars and the multi-storied, very well constructed brick structures with the ornamentation. All things we're used to seeing as we look into the architecture of the world that once was. And no shortage of steeples, as you can see here. And this is very telling. This photograph alone is showing you, again, not a large city, but you've got a very built out, very ornate looking city already at this point, at the turn of the century. Very difficult to construct all of this. And remember, you would have to have quite the setup for the infrastructure to complete these types of buildings. You have churches next to churches, frivolously put together. And this is a very nice early 1865 to 1885. This photograph is dated. You can see here the early horse and buggy, the horse pulling the streetcar narrative. And of course, in this field of research, we suggest that this isn't technology that was repurposed from the old world. So this would have been the early stages when they didn't have the electricity up and running. You can see though the age of the streets here. That is a cobbled street, very, very well worn even at that early time period. And magnificent architecture, the type of architecture we don't do today. Very permanent building materials and very, very well put together. Beautiful location. and I'm told much of it still remains. So if you are from the area, please share your stories, your relationship with the architecture itself. And this is the American Optical Factory, and I thought I'd throw it in there. You can even see the vastness of the structure itself. You can even see steeples. Again, a lot of the that frivolity that we just don't do anymore, but was so commonplace in the old world. This one I like too, because if you look at the quality of the stonework here, it certainly doesn't match the quality of the architecture that we have been seeing from the old world, the tightness of the joints between the rocks and how tightly fitting many of the arches are. This is very, very poorly put together, as you can see. Very rough. So New World trying to mimic what they see, I think, of the old world. And this is the Antiquarian Building or Antiquarian Hall, the Antiquarian Society, responsible for preserving documentation of the past. And again, I propose that many of these societies are more trying to uphold a specific narrative. And we turn to these societies as authorities on that historical narrative. This is the National Guard Armory, completed in 1890, we're told. This is just how they like to build in 1890, and this is what it looks like in the modern day. You can see the decapitation that has gone on here and the removal of much of the flare. All of these indications of the old world. Still a magnificent structure. You can see the permanence of the materials themselves, but pales in comparison to what it once was. This is the Art Museum, and we are told this gets a series of expansions throughout the early 20th century. But here's a look at the interior. Certainly not looking like it was expanded upon, but looking like it was a single structure. Very nicely put together. And Worcester gets its own asylum. Remember the old world and the erasing of the past, and how many people were interred in these asylums at the turn of the century. The hundreds of thousands, they say, at the turn of the century in America. Imprisoned, I would say, in these asylums. And these are absolutely massive structures. Again, frivolous. Why would you need a circular roof? Very difficult to construct. These, I think, were repurposed from the old world. The architecture does not make sense. We have a tower that actually increases in size as we move up, as they flare it outward, and the clock portion becomes larger than the portion that that's supporting it. It's very, very frivolous details architecturally, structurally. And then speaking of which, of course, we have a lower level as well. And of course, this built in the Kirkbride fashion between 1870 and 1876, we are told, at a time when the population of Worcester is less than 50,000 people, and they saved the clock tower. Everything else is gone. What do you think? Did they build this in the 1870s? Because there were just so many crazy people? Or is there more to the story? Now this one, the Bay State House Hotel, apparently opened up in 1856, which is quite early. Again, not fitting of the historical narrative that how we envision that time period. This is pre-American Civil War. You know, you see the depictions of them and cutting off limbs and everything's horse and buggy, but you've got these types of structures. Yeah, you have to wonder who builds like structures like this for a boys' club. Can you imagine the amount of time it would take to get these things operational? Or it should take? And you're elaborately decorating with all of this stuff? There must have been no rush at all to open these structures. We've got a wonderful photograph of the Cathedral of St. Paul. This one apparently, construction began in 1868 and was completed in 1874, although they were having services in the basement several years before it was finished, we are told. But again, I want you to envision that American post-Civil War attitude, the portrayal that we are given by history in Hollywood, and envision them putting something like this together. It still stands and it's absolutely magnificent. They must have had a way to polish these granite columns back in the 1870s. I'm sure, yeah, steam or water power, we'll be told, but way too tight-fitting, all of this. And you get these ghost churches as well that are difficult to find. It's the old First Baptist Church. So they're just throwing these things up. And to my knowledge, this one doesn't stand anymore. The Old South Church. Again, a beautiful stone structure, surrounded by stone and brick structures. And the Old South Church had a massive pipe organ, because why wouldn't you? Beautiful looking structure as well. I couldn't find a date on that one, but I would be willing to bet that it's right in that same time period, or we'll be told. And of course we have that same architecture popping up here on the City Hall. This is an 1898 construction. We're only given the 1 year. It's a bit sparse as far as I'm concerned. And it still stands, and a fantastic looking structure. No doubt a landmark in Worcester. And when you do get a sneak peek of that interior, again, looking a lot like the art museum interior as well. Very picturesque looking city. And I have been directed to look at the city by a viewer of a past video. So if you have any cities in mind that I haven't done, and check my catalog before you recommend. A lot of you have asked for a certain location, but if you search my catalog, you'll find it. So check there first, because I've done about 100 cities in North America. And in the 1800s, of course, you couldn't highlight enough the importance of education. So we're looking at several schools here. The Commerce High School, and we'll be looking at that a little bit more as we move forward. But we will jump back to the Congregation Church. And this would be the Union Congregational Church, supposedly put together between 1895 and 1897. Very busy time period for construction, as always. Not to be confused with the Central Congregational Church, with its clock tower or bell tower. And the old adage, they don't build them like they used to, comes to mind when looking at these structures. And this is a county courthouse. I love the horse and buggies up top there, with such a fantastic looking structure, and this is the mode of transportation for the time. The Davis Hall in the Worcester Academy. I have a blurry photograph for you, but again, they had a real thing with their towers in this location. They must have had some specialists to come and build these for them. And we'll keep moving forward. But this a high school. Classic old worlder. And there's that retaining wall, really roughly put together retaining wall. Almost megalithic though in size, some of these blocks. But certainly a rougher construction than what we're used to seeing in the old world. So you wonder if they had to retain some of the topography with those large stone walls. And then we get the whispers of a fire and evidence of covering up the old world. This is an old facade that's being removed. You can see the old facade here. So maybe you have buildings in your town that look like this. It looked like they were built in the 60s and 70s. Maybe it's just a facade and they just covered up all the windows. Now they're uncovering it here to show off the flair of the old world. And looking at the College of the Holy Cross, apparently this building going back to the 1840s, back when it was easy to construct like this. And several of its buildings. You can see the tech on top here. There it is in the modern day, 1840s. What do you think? Was a building like that back then? Is there something amiss with the history that we've been given? Some spectacular architecture in Worcester. And the purpose of these videos is to highlight the architecture for a given location. I'll ramble on and say a few things about it here and there, but really it's to put it all in the same area for you, the viewer, to check out the architecture for that given area. And in this video, of course, it's Worcester, Massachusetts, and this is still part of the Holy Cross College with its octagonal coffered ceiling. Still Holy Cross. I'm guessing this is a library space. Again, the coffered ceiling. Very difficult to finish that. If you've ever done any of that kind of work, you understand how difficult that would be. And this hospital needed a bell tower. I don't have a name for this church. I really find it interesting when they put stone on the actual peak of the tower itself. Again, I keep talking about the difficulty in construction, coming at it from a standpoint of someone who does that kind of work, has been involved in the trade. It's easy to see the difficulty that would arise in trying to accomplish these tasks, and the narrative we're given about the 1800s certainly does not match what we're seeing. And there it is again, removing the old ugly facade, revealing the glory and splendor of the old world. Still in very good shape as well. Maybe a bit weathered looking, maybe fire damage, not sure. But we had beautiful markets with elaborate ornamentation. And this is what it's been reduced to in the modern day. Almost forgotten, but still stands, as far as I know. And of course the gents having their presence. The Gents Club. Just look at some of the interior. This is the Federal Judicial Center. Nice looking cupola on top with the columns. So we saw this in the beginning, this mechanics hall, dating back to the 1870s. We have some spectacular interior shots for you of this one. If anyone has ever been inside of this building, let me know. And why do they have a pipe organ in the mechanics hall? These pipe organs just seem to show up everywhere. Memorial Auditorium, this one will be dated to late 20s, I believe. And I mean, if they were building these in the late 20s, we've really lost something. And I have mentioned World War II as a reset point for our consciousness. So what was really going on before World War II? Or was it just the final wiping of our memory? Our collective memory? This is the Oddfellows' home. Very old world looking dome. Mansard style dome. And then we have the details again, the details. They say the devil's in the details. Several of these strange stone towers too, looking like ruins of something larger, but they retained several of them. We saw one earlier in the video as well. This is the Ohrid Castle, Ohrid, apparently dating back to 1849. Was a college. Laura Spellman Rockefeller once attended it, the future wife of John D. Rockefeller. And you can see here the rail car is a very prominent part of life in Worcester at this time period. And we still have, well, we have early automobiles, and I don't know if I see any horse and buggies, but right at that transition period looking like there. The Park Theatre. The Pilgrim Church. How many churches have we seen? I have the interior of the Plymouth Theatre. Now these are spotty and a lot of them are hard to find, so I apologize if they feel like they're a little bit scattered. I'm just trying to bring you what I found. I did try to organize these as best I could. We have the Polytechnic Institute, again with the tower. There it is again. So a lot of architecture for a city that was really never that large. A lot of very time-consuming construction. Very, very skilled, time-consuming construction. The post office, you see, it's very, very short-lived. Now these short lifespans, less than 40 years for this one, to me is one of the dead giveaways that we're looking at the erasing of of past building that was much older than having been built in 1896. I think that's a dead giveaway. There's no way this thing would be anywhere near its shelf life after that amount of time. Here we see it from the back end. You see that conical dome on the corner, the basement, again supposedly being built in that same time period. Now we've seen 3 or 4 structures, all being attributed to that time period. So this is one of my favorites. I mentioned it earlier. It goes under a couple different names. The English high school, the common high school, I believe. But this one jumped out at me a long time ago when I was searching for high schools. Of course, it no longer stands. Absolutely incredible, incredible architecture. Another school, dime a dozen. Even the landscaping, this is wonderful too, with the rocks and the stairs. All of this is very, very, very well done. And apparently this is a new Oddfellows building. We saw the earlier Oddfellows building. Don't know how new that looks. And I believe this is a YMCA, which we will see a little bit later as well, but conical domes attached to the YMCA as well in Worcester. Another school. I know it's a blurry photograph, but I wanted to include it. As we approach the end of our file, what's your impression of Worcester, Massachusetts? Is this what you expected? Can we attribute all of this to the age of the area as far as our conventional historical narrative goes? Or in looking at these, can we assume that maybe there's something wrong with the historical narrative and maybe there's some time missing? Slater building. Here it is. It looks like it's a bank, but still has a bit of that flair. It's been around a while. And I found this interior as well, but I'm not sure what building it's from. So I'm not going to say it's from the Slater building. It came up in a search for that building, but I don't know. If anyone has any idea where this might be, let me know. But it certainly is absolutely incredible. The fluted marble columns. I mean, come on. You know anyone that's doing that these days? And just when you thought we were finished with the churches, we have the St. Anne's, a Roman Catholic church, but having trouble finding the construction date for this one. Beautiful. And the importance of the performing arts in the old world on display in Worcester. We have the Royal Theatre. And I'm not sure what's being depicted here. This is an early depiction. Worcester. We have another theatre. I don't know. Oh, the Worcester Theatre. There you go. And we have another theatre. I don't have a name for this one either. Maybe it's here. Maybe somebody knows. But we'll continue. On to Clark University. So we had Holy Cross College, and we also have Clark University. Then we have a Union Station, one of two Union Stations. We saw this one earlier, the old Union Station. Again, one of my favorites going down through time. Very classic looking Worcester Tower. And here's I would suspect, the newer Union Station. Reminding me of Mobile, Alabama, I believe. And we'll briefly jump back over to Clark University. I just want to show you a couple modern day shots of the architecture on this university. Some tech there, old world tech. What a beautiful, beautiful old world city Worcester, Massachusetts is. If you're near the area, I certainly recommend getting out and checking out what they still have to offer here in the modern day. And here's that Worcester Theatre. I think we saw a postcard of that. Rebuilt after a fire in 1889, as usual. Always a fire to destroy the old and then justify the construction date of the new. But sometimes those construction times are a little too brief and they kind of mess up on their timeline, and that's what we're focusing on here as we look into the old world. This is the Wesley United Methodist. Just another church. Looking very sloped here. Interesting. They had a women's club, so we have a boys' club, a women's club, several gentlemen's clubs. No shortage of clubs, and of course those clubs had all of the funding in the world to build beautiful architecture. And there's that tower again, and again these ones I suspect were a part of something else. There's possibly looking like some damage. I don't think that these were built with these boulders. Of course I could be wrong, but as I've looked into the meltology aspect of the old world, I've seen a lot of damaged structures. And we'll have the YMCA, and we saw this from the other angle. Here's another look at that. The YMCA, I don't know of any modern day YMCAs that build like this. There it is from the back. If you do, let me know. Let me know if they're building anything like this close to where you are. It's that classic Romanesque styling, they'll say. Very, very prominent architecture, very sturdy. And we've finished the file with a YWCA, not to be outdone. So this has been a look at Worcester, Massachusetts. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.